I started my research actually studying patients with beta thalassemia, which is another inherited anemia, and it involves the same gene, the beta globin gene. And this started when I began my research in Oxford under Sir David Weatherall, and my project was to find out why some patients with beta thalassemia have such a mild disease. They are not dependent on blood transfusion, unlike the majority. You see, the majority of patients with beta thalassemia need blood transfusion to survive. And I was attracted because I was familiar with beta thalassemia. I did my basic medical education in Malaysia, and Malaysia is one of the places where beta thalassemia is fairly common. As to your question, how will it impact the majority? Well, there is no doubt it's a huge landmark and a triumph for molecular medicine. Not only just sickle cell disease, because it shows that it can be done. And sickle cell disease is a really good model for this, to try out the technology. At the moment though, it involves very sophisticated technology. It requires a lot of resources, which is not available, not only just in the low to middle income countries, but also in the US. And in fact, the company could probably only do about 20 for the whole year. And it costs about more than $2 million. So for me, I'm very happy and delighted that this has actually been able to, use for the therapy. But what I feel is that we need more drugs that can be taken orally. And this is actually my focus now, to try to develop more drugs for sickle cell patients. Well, I think there's huge potential, and the question is to apply it, shall I say, in the right way too. People are working on different ways of improving to try a bit more targeted, and you can apply a thing for other, not necessarily blood diseases. I can't think offhand really. But the prospects are wide. The technology itself, maybe not to apply for treating disease as such, but at least on the bench to develop models so that one can understand better. It's in the sense that applying it quickly, I would say those with most developed technology and the high-income countries. But helping the patients itself could be difficult. Like say in the US market, there's an insurance system, but of course, some of them have to negotiate heavily with the healthcare system to be able to pay for this technology. Europe, like say the NHS, where I used to work before, I think once it's approved, then the NHS will take care of the payment, which seems a bit more straightforward. Whereas in the US is harder. Now, applying it to Africa, like where most of the sickle cell patients are, or to India, then that's going to be tough. I can't see, the biotechnology going to make it. I was told they're not even making money because it is a very expensive technology. I was actually very surprised when I received this email because I wasn't even aware that I'd been nominated. I just love my work, and I've done this like in my, my previous life, okay? When I was in the UK, and when I was approached to, come to the US, to the NIH, I shifted because I was more interested now to find drugs to treat patients. Because I think that's the way forward. I felt that what I've done in research, I've understood. Right now, my next aim is to try to predict disease severity more. And so, it is great that it could be applied. What I felt the more important point in this, it actually raises the profile of sickle cell disease. This kind of disease, actually has been ignored for so long. And hopefully these will actually raise its profile. Despite the fact that it was described more than a century ago. And you think of diseases that has come on after. Cures have already been found for them. So that aspect, I feel that it is great. But I think that we need to spend more, invest more in developing drugs until they can develop ways that will cost much less of delivering these curative therapies. Well, at least you can look at it this way. Those who are in the environment are interested in developing the drugs. Then the next step, obviously, is to try to make it affordable to the patients in the countries where most of the patients are. I mean, the US has more than 100,000 sickle cell patients anyway. Although it's called rare, it's actually a common rare disease. But I agree with you, the bulk is actually in Africa and India, and the global trials are being done internationally anyway. So I'm involved in, another drug, that oral drug, that hopefully is already completed phase 3 randomized trials, and they should be analyzing the results by the end of next year when the last patient will have completed. And I would put together, I think we, the scientists who have been, or the medical doctors who have been involved, will put pressure on the company to make it affordable. But I agree with you. They also have to, recoup the investment for developing these drugs. Oh, definitely international collaboration. What's the point of just developing this drug and treat it only patients in the well-resourced country? You're not really reaching the majority of the patients who are needing it. I mean, from a business point of view, okay, it's better to have large volume, even those smaller costs, rather than make it prohibitively expensive and it's only available to a smaller number of people, right? I mean, anybody running a business will probably tell you volume is probably more important. Well, I think there is no doubt that it's going to be impacting life sciences and medicine a lot. And it is probably all of us who are scared of technology should embrace it and learn how to incorporate it in health. I mean, it's already here, it's making a big impact. And then for me, how it impacted me is, as I was mentioning earlier, I've always, one of the things that thalassemia and sickle cell disease have in common is they share the same gene, but they both also have a very wide range of severity. I always felt that it would be great if you can predict those patients earlier on to see who is going to have a more severe clinical outcome. So now, in fact, I'm working with statisticians and who are to use AI and machine learning to develop risk scores. And it looks very encouraging. We've already done one about predicting survival for patients with sickle cell disease, and then adapted to patients who are going to undergo bone marrow transplant to predict those who are going to have a poor outcome or those in whom the transplant is going to be successful. And the next step is to then, for me also, to get all the genetic variants that have been reported. It's kind of throwing it into a jackpot machine, isn't it? And then let the AI and the machine learning, you know, sort through these risk factors to work out the endpoint or outcome that you want. This is where it's kind of impacted my practice. The other thing, I was really also excited that this AI, they use it like to predict what is AlphaFold, right? The protein structure. So one thing which could, you know, impact what I'm doing is one of the drugs, another drug that I think has got very good anti-sickling potential. It's already being used for other diseases, but it does have quite a lot of what we call in medical terms off-target effects, meaning it's not just specific for what I would like. Then if we can use, say, this AlphaFolding to predict the protein structure, and that might well give us some information to know which parts of that protein interacted with the red cell, what I really want, and then perhaps redesign a drug that without all the others, but with this. Maybe I'm talking about pie in the sky, but I think it may be possible. And then, you know, use it for its anti-sickling effects. So I'm actually quite excited by these prospects. I think the most important thing is you have to be prepared to keep learning all your life. I mean, it's not just students of life sciences, students, and, you know, you have to maintain a curiosity and want to learn. Then another thing I think is very important is that you have to enjoy what you're doing. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, then you're not going to do a good job. You enjoy what you're doing, time passes very fast, and then you do good work. And the other thing also is, I mean, like I said to you earlier, I enjoy what I was doing. I never thought that I'm going to earn a Shaw Prize later on, okay? So I was very happy and just excited that people recognize, you know, my work. And I guess the other thing, advice which I would give is that, you know, some students, particularly the younger generation who, you know, may be pressured, they always want to be perfect and do very well. Just be a bit imperfect and try to learn from your failures. Because if you have not failed, that means you've not really tried, right? And then one more piece of advice is, when you know you're wrong, just cut your losses and move on. Just don't keep trying and wasting your time. Before I retire, what I would like is to at least get 1 or 2 more drugs on the market for sickle cell, and maybe develop a better algorithm for predicting disease severity, so that those who I know who are going to have a severe disease later on, then at least we can perhaps follow them a bit more closely. So if I can develop a drug that can try to stop this, you know, from blowing up, then I feel this would really empower the patients a lot. Rather than taking painkillers, they can take maybe a drug or maybe just a patch to stop this in its tracks so that it doesn't blow up. Then I would have felt I've done something really good for the patients.